Welcome into SportsSource.tv. This is our overtime segment. We do these most every Sunday, not always, but we did this week. In case you're wondering if you're watching on Sunday or Monday or Tuesday, you can watch anytime. We tape it right after our show. It's brought to you by Blue Smoke Cigar. You see it right there on the monitor. It's a club, it's a lounge, leather seating, card tables and card rooms, TVs all over the place, golf simulators, a private room for small meetings, lockers for your favorite cigars and hooch. I love the word hooch. And a humidor filled with the best boutique cigar brands in America. And now, if you become a member, 15% off your cigars. It's a good deal. Blue Smoke Cigar, and of course they have their original store, Smokin' Joe's, is still down in Alcoa with their great walk-in humidor. Smokin' Joe's and Blue Smoke Cigar. Check them out, West Knoxville, right off the South Peters Road. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about the SEC meeting, stuff we've talked about this in the show before, so I didn't want to jump into it on Sunday morning, but we'll do it in overtime because Jay Jacobs, the athletic director at Auburn, is making such a big deal over it. Nobody else seems to care. But Jay Jacobs clearly wants to get Auburn into the SEC East and out of the SEC West. And he says, hey, we want to continue to play Alabama. We're not ducking Alabama. Yes, you are. You don't want to finish number 2 or number 3 to Alabama in the West every year. So don't act like playing them covers up the fact that you're scurrying away. I don't remember Auburn putting up a fight to play in the East when Tennessee and Florida were dominating in the 90s. Your thoughts on Jay Jacobs trying to move Auburn to the East, where geographically it makes sense? Of course, it also made sense that they're further east than Nashville. They should have been east instead of Vanderbilt, if you go back that far. But he wants to move them east, wants to move Missouri west. Missouri doesn't seem like they're chiming in on that. Thoughts on this? Anybody good with it? Anybody see his point, like it, side?
I'm good with it. I don't like his point, but I'm good with it. They move to the east, that's fine. Move Missouri to the west, no big deal. I mean, it's all kind of a moving target anyway, and if it's going to make more sense geographically, go with it.
And if Tennessee and Alabama don't play, if that's one of the...
it depends on how you handle the scheduling.
Yeah.
Do you add ninth game and everything else?
Which some people, that's good or bad, but there's a lot of ramifications to it, So I can see where it has some merits, but I don't see why they want to do it or would do it.
It has some merits regarding geography. It has some merits regarding Missouri not having to travel to Florida to play volleyball. They're not going to do it. I actually was visiting with Jay Jacobs, and I said, okay, but if you move, here's what I think you ought to do. You need to add a 9th game to the equation. And I was met with HNL. Hell no, loser. So, Chuck, I'm in your club now. And in fact, there was a bowl official that was next to me, and he said, you can't do that. He said, because that's just one more loss for the league. And I'm thinking, I know why you don't want it, because you may not get an SEC team in the Liberty Bowl. So that's why he doesn't want that. He wants to make sure there are enough bowl-eligible SEC teams. So that was another factor.
When you're at the bottom of the SEC's bowl ladder, that makes sense.
So anyway, but Jacob said, no, we can't go to 9. But he said what he wanted to do was do away with all divisions, and then the top 2 teams in the league play for the SEC championship, and then you maybe go to a pod system where you have 3 permanents, and then you rotate everybody else.
And that got some play on. Well, Josh, you go ahead. What are your thoughts?
Well, Jimmy mentioned what my reaction would be is Auburn to the east, sure, but that's actually, if you're going to discuss that, you should have discussed it 5 years ago when you're bringing 2 schools into your conference. Where was this heavy discussion then when you're putting Missouri into the Eastern Division? I remember talking to E.J. Gaines. He was a really good player for them, and I said, what do you think about joining the East when you come into the SEC? He said, well, it doesn't make any sense, but there are a lot of things about college football that don't make sense. There was a college athlete that recognized you got some flawed with the system. So my reaction would be you're avoiding what the topic really should be, and that's 9 games within a conference schedule.
Yes, and I will say this for Missouri, too. They're actually closer to Nashville, Knoxville, and Lexington than they are like College Station, Baton Rouge. So it's not like when you think of the SEC East kind of as the North, they're more in line with those guys than they are far east or deep southwest. So you can look at that and tweak it any way you want. But I think that
once you get Texas A&M into the conference and Florida on the other side, geography is not going to make any sense if we're talking about the Southeastern Conference at any point.
Yeah,
you just expanded so much.
Yes,
I wouldn't have a problem. I like the idea of taking the top 2 teams in the SEC championship game. I'm good with that. I think that's the way it ought to be. And I'm okay with no divisions. The plan that's getting a lot of play. We did this on the show 3 or 4 years ago where I picked 5 permanent, we put it on the board, 5 most played permanent opponents, as close as we could get it for all the SEC teams. You keep them and you rotate 3 a year and you get through the league faster than you do now. In 4 years you see everybody. The plan that a lot of people like is, well, you keep 3 permanent rivals and then every year you flip the other 5 teams. So there's 5 this year, 5 the next year, back to the first 5, back to the next 5, and that way in 2 years you're seeing everybody in the league. The problem is the people that posted that thing is it's like, well, it keeps all the important rivalries. It didn't have Vandy and Mississippi saved. Okay, now we may say, who cares? Well, Vandy and Mississippi care. They've played 90-something times. So that's the reason I don't like the 3 is the people who did it just said, well, okay, Alabama LSU is big. They haven't. Alabama LSU is less played than Alabama Mississippi State, Alabama Ole Miss, Alabama Tennessee. So the way
Tennessee
you
and
look
Florida
at
haven't played that often.
Tennessee
really,
and Georgia have.
historically. Yeah,
Tennessee's
Tennessee,
played
Georgia.
Ole Miss and Auburn more than they have
Yeah.
Florida and Georgia. So the idea of 3 is a little too small. I think it works out well. It's cute that you could do all the teams in 2 years. I think you ought to do it with 4 permanents or 5 permanents where you get more of your classic rivalries. The 3 permanents, Tennessee would lose Kentucky. You've played Kentucky more than you've played anybody else, including Vanderbilt. I don't think Tennessee would want to give up the Kentucky game to Lexington. You know, and now Kentucky may want to. But
There's a difference in the long-term rivalry and the short-term.
right.
And to your point earlier about Tennessee and Florida, and that's a heck of a rivalry that was spawned by division play, starting in 1992 going forward. So now that's all of a sudden a big rivalry. Historically, it wasn't.
That's right.
Because they didn't play each other
Yeah,
very
you're
much.
trying to
So-
protect the old while still transitioning to the very new of
And
college
still
football.
trying to protect the
Well,
ratings
what do you do with, like,
rivalry.
say, South Carolina? I mean, who are going to be their permanent rivals because they really, I mean, obviously, I think Georgia. But after that, you kind of get a little bit shaky. Okay, Tennessee would make sense as their other permanent
Tennessee,
rival.
Kentucky,
okay, now you
Vandy,
take
Florida.
somebody away from Tennessee.
That's right.
You know,
That's why, to me, if it's 3, you're giving up too much. But if you're looking at 5 permanents, okay, you're not going to be able to keep everybody, but you keep more.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's some of the thoughts. I'm not big on moving. The reason I'm not big on it is they didn't talk about it until Alabama became a juggernaut. That, to me, that's cowardice. Fans don't like playing Alabama every year right now because they beat you. I've heard more and more friends of mine who used to say, well, you can't give up Alabama. Now they're at the point of saying, well, we can give up Alabama. I like the fact that Tennessee has never ducked that game. It's like, hey, that's part of it. We're not running. We're not trying to get out of it. We'll play them.
Yeah, Alabama's not North Carolina.
Duck, North Carolina.
North Carolina.
There you go.
Dooley and Hamilton no longer here. But I like the fact that Tennessee hasn't ducked Alabama, and I think Auburn should do the same because the odds, it's all cyclical. It's possible they could move to the East. Saban retires, surprisingly.
Yeah. And then they
West
went-
goes to hell, and the East explodes. And now you've jumped from the frying pan into the fire. I just think they're doing it mainly, and all the other reasons. They're saying, well, we get our students from these states. Haven't heard you say that for the last 20 years. You're just saying it now. Why now? Alabama's good now. That, to me, is why they're doing it. And I think I'm not going to reward somebody for cowardice.
Yeah, and one good thing about doing away with divisions for football, wouldn't you be doing away with divisions for basketball too? That's one of the
Yeah,
things
yeah,
I
yeah.
have a huge problem with. If you're taking away Tennessee and Kentucky home and home, or Tennessee and Florida home and home, you don't really gain anything that the coaches kind of said you were. They thought that it was hurting you in terms of not having divisions, were hurting you in terms of NCAA bids, when all you really need to do is schedule better. Do away with divisions, and you do away with divisions. I'd be all for that for
And
basketball.
it's funny to hear Bruce Pearl say this week he would prefer to go back to divisions in basketball. That I've always liked that. And
Really?
Yeah, and he didn't vote that way, I think, because he acquiesced to the majority. The only person that came out and voted against doing that basketball was Rick Stansberry at Mississippi State. Everybody else agreed with it at that time.
Total side note, I saw where Stansbury has like 2 of the top 100 recruits in the country. He's at Western Kentucky now, isn't he?
With a chance to add a third, like a top 40 player.
That guy never got any NCAA heat. but he recruited awfully well at Starkville and now Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Hard worker.
And as an
He must
assistant
be.
at College Station with A&M.
He must be a very, very hard worker. All right, that's
Relationships.
way off the top. Let me get back on the topic. Talking about SEC changes, I'm going to make you guys kings of the SEC. Okay, you're not Sankeys, you're Slives. You have real power that you're ready to wield. You can do anything. Change divisions. You can change rules. Football, basketball, whatever you want to do, I'm going to let you do it. I'll start. Mine would be football replays. Time them. If it goes longer than 90 seconds, it's inconclusive. It's supposed to be conclusive. The video evidence has to be conclusive to overturn something. If you're looking at it for more than 90 seconds, by definition, that is not conclusive. So to me, put a timer on. If it takes 90 seconds, we can't change anything. We're going with the call on the field. That would be in a way to move and speed up the game. Because I think there are a lot of them where you're sitting there scratching your head, why are they taking so long? And Jimmy, you said the average length was right about 90 seconds, wasn't it?
A minute 26 was the average replay for an SEC game last year.
So 90 seconds right there. All right. Bob Hodge, what would you do?
Yours makes mine seem so piddly now.
I doubt that.
I'd like to see SEC teams wear their home jerseys on the roads.
Yeah, I don't think that's piddly at all. I think that's good.
I would like to see. I think it's been. It seems like in my memory within the last few years somebody did that.
Oh, it's been Tennessee and North Carolina State.
Okay, Tennessee, North Carolina State. Thank you. I would just like to see that more. I mean, I'm kind of a traditionalist when it comes to uniforms, and I think it would be more fun to see Tennessee and Alabama in Neyland Stadium, red and orange. Mm-hmm. Or they could both wear gray,
Crimson.
maybe. That would be the other thing. But anyway, that would be my little thing. Is it, unless there's a real clash, then you can do that.
USC and UCLA were the first rivals to try and make this happen. And the NCAA had a rule that said, well, you're going to give up timeout if you do it. And the coaches, I think it was Pete Carroll, I forget who was the UCLA coach at the time. It was before Moore, I think. But might have been, who was before him? Carl Durrell? Anyway, they agreed, and they said, well, if you take a penalty, we'll take a penalty. And we'll lose a timeout. And the NCAA said, okay, if you both want to do it, you can both do it. And Kiffin asked Alabama if Tennessee could wear the orange down there, and Alabama said no. That was a few years ago. So
And then Kiffin said, we're not good enough to take that penalty.
Yeah, right, yeah. So other schools are starting to do this. Bowl games, you're starting to see it. I love it. There are no more black and white TVs out there.
Exactly.
So as long as it's not two teams wearing blue or two teams wearing orange, let them wear both colors. All right, Jimmy, what would you do?
9 games in football. And I know that you're going to have the argument that in a given year you could have 5 on the road, and the next year you might have 5 at home. I get that, but I think there's an imbalance in the scheduling right now. I think that clearly some teams in the league play a tougher schedule than the other. So go to 9. I think that would help you cycle through playing more teams in the league, and it would also strengthen your strength of schedule. So I would go to 9.
And you can also get around, if you get all of the permanent rivals, cross-divisional rivals, on the same page, right, the permanent ones, to where the West teams always host in the even years, East teams always host in the odd years, then you don't have to worry about the 5 and 4. The East would always, everybody in the East would either get 5 home games or 4 home games. In the same year, they'd all have the same thing. Same thing for the West. East gets 5 this year, West gets 4. Next year, West gets 5, East gets 4. So you could get around that whole home and road thing. Who's got an advantage? Division-wise, you could get rid of that. So 9 games, I agree with you. I like everything I'm hearing so far. Josh, don't say anything stupid.
Okay, never mind then. Well, I'm going to go to my backup because mine was going to be 9 games. I'll add in though that with that I would give a second off week. I would give you 14 weeks to play your 12, and the reason would be, especially if you're expanding your conference schedule. With the thing about college football versus the NFL season is slightly longer, 4 more games, but you have the same amount of off weeks. In the NFL, you also have free agency to where you can deal with injuries. In college, if you get crushed with injuries, it's difficult to catch back up. An extra off week could help with that.
No.
You know, the NCAA's proposed that.
Yes.
To do that. What was interesting, the football coaches in the SEC, the majority of them didn't want it. Yeah. And what I heard was that you were going to be moving back the starting date instead of like August 1st, that in some calendar years it might be July 26th, something like that. That the wives were not happy about the extra week, less a vacation that they would take. That was one of the arguments that I heard.
Bob, you were saying no. Why?
No, and you, like you said earlier in a topic earlier in the show, I'm usually anything for the kids. and this would probably be for the kids. But as a fan, no. I hate it. I hate 2 open weeks.
Oh, okay.
It just seems like it stretches the season out too long.
Nick Saban, he was one of the ones that came out against it, and he said, and it might have been, he said this earlier this year, but he talked about the fact that it's already such a long season. He said it's a grind. He said, we played 15 games last year. It takes forever. You don't want to be adding to that. At the same time, I don't have a problem with it because I think it does help you
They didn't
heal
have a problem
up.
going to a 12th game. They
Yeah.
didn't have a problem expanding that part, did they?
I would look at it, though. Here's the thing. For those people that talk about it would be better for the kids. On paper, yeah, you wouldn't have to play a game, but you're adding another week of practice. I would be for it if they said that second open date or the first open date you get, one of them, no practice that week. It's like a free week. You have to work out and do your thing, but no hitting, we'll say. To me, that would dial it back a little bit to make it more, because otherwise you're just adding another week of practice for them to go out there and get hurt in practice field. So anyway.
Does that count as my rule change, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay.
You'd stretch to a 14
okay.
weeks to play 12 games.
Yeah.
All right.
Every year, not just some years.
Right,
Right.
yeah, every year.
Chuck.
I'm going to allow red shirts to play in up to 4 games in a bowl game without losing eligibility. And I think that makes as much sense as anything I've heard, and it's like, to me, it's a no-brainer, and why don't they allow that?
Well, most coaches seem to be behind it. The NCAA is still looking at that. It could happen because they're kind of getting they want the returns from all the different leagues at their meetings where they talk to the coaches, and it seems like if the coaches elsewhere, and I can't imagine they wouldn't, if they look at it the same way the SEC coaches do, I suspect that rule change will be implemented sometime in the next year or two. Because they're wanting the feedback, and it sounds like the feedback is, well, I haven't heard anybody negative about the feedback.
I've heard one.
Okay, what was the negative?
There was one dissenting vote from somebody that I was talking to that did not want to go public with his opinion.
So name him anyway.
Here it
Was the wife against it too?
I can't believe Nick Saban said this. Here's what the
And I don't
deal
believe you if
was.
you say sources say. Can't believe that anymore. Go ahead.
Just one source. One source says.
Source says, yeah.
He said that the reason he didn't like it is because what happens if you're 6-6 or 7-5 type season, and so you bench your seniors and start playing a bunch of freshmen, and you're going to make your seniors mad, and that's one reason he didn't like it. It's the only dissenting opinion I've heard on this particular rule.
I can't see a coach doing that because as soon as some coach shut it down for the year and basically started playing the kids, he would be toasted by his own fan base, I think.
Yep.
Don't you think?
Agree.
Like if Butch Jones were in the situation where he could do it, and he had this guy, and at the end of the year he's like, well, we're not doing well, we're just going to shut her down. I think the Vol Nation would rightfully blow up.
Yeah, college football fans would not take well to tanking.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not the NFL. There's not a draft choice waiting, and even there they don't tank
Right.
for the most part.
Yeah.
For the most part.
For the most part.
So
Okay.
what was the best one? What's the best?
Well, clearly the timer on the replays is the one that's the smallest and the easiest.
Speaking of timing,
I think they're all, we got to go.
Yeah.
They're all good. I like the jersey thing. If I have to back one of them, then I
they're
think
all
would be
good.
a simple one. They're all good. But
And
I
you
have
could
to
use
back
the
one.
Wizard of Oz sands to the hourglass timer.
Very good. Chuck Cavaleras, Josh Ward, Jimmy Himes, Bob Hodge. Thank you very much for watching us. Thanks to our sponsors, including Blue Smoke Cigar. Get out there and check them out. We'll see you next Sunday at 11 a.m. on WATE 6 for the Sports Source.